Hello, this video is for IXL, Activity 8.C.3. It is titled Add and Subtract Integers. By integers, we mean non-decimal numbers that can be positive or they could be negative. The 3-character code for this activity is 6 uniform whiskey. So before we get started, and even though you're probably looking at these problems and thinking, oh, I'm negative 7 plus 7, that's 0. And 8 plus 2, that's 10. This shouldn't be too hard. I want to point out a couple things. Now, first of all, one thing that we know is that if we have a positive number and we add it to a positive number, it's just going to get more positive. It's going to be positive, correct? And if we have a negative number, and that's not a very good looking n, is it? If we have a negative number and we add it to another negative number, it's just going to get more negative. And so, right, negative plus negative is negative, positive plus positive is a positive. However, the question becomes, what if we have a positive number plus a negative number? How do we know if the answer is positive or if it is negative? So we're going to look at that in this situation here as we get to that problem. So whenever we see that situation, we'll go ahead and actually negative 7 plus 7 is an example of that, but I think that was just a little too easy for us. So we'll go ahead and look at that. And also, we're going to look at something else further down the line. And, well, whenever we get there, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about that. So let me go ahead and clear this out and we'll get started. Negative 7 plus 7. Well, they're opposites of each other. So it's going to equal 0, right? Two numbers that are opposites of each other, their sum, if you add them together, equals 0. They're actually what are known as additive inverses. A number and its opposite are additive inverses. They both also have the same absolute value. And we're going to talk about absolute value in a little bit, so I guess it would be worthwhile to mention here. So in this case, if I had negative 7 down here, 0 here, and 7 here, notice that both negative 7 and positive 7 are both 7 units, or 7 spaces, or however you want to call it. We'll call it units. 7 units from 0. And that's what absolute value is all about. So absolute value is all about distance from 0 on a number line. So negative 7, it's absolute value. We represent absolute value with those lines there. The absolute value of negative 7, and compare that to the absolute value of positive 7. In this case, they're both positive 7. So anytime you have the absolute value of x, it's always going to come out positive x, whether it's a positive or whether it's a negative. No matter what the value is, you take the absolute value of it, it's going to come out positive, and that's because absolute value is all about the distance that a number is from 0 on a number line. And the negative numbers are just as far from 0 as the positive, as their additive inverses or their opposites are on the number line. Next, 8 plus 2, well, that's 10. Positive plus positive, it's just going to get more positive. Here we have 10 minus negative 3. So here's something that I want to point out. Let's go with this. Let's do something a little bit easier. Let's do 7 minus 5. You're like, oh, I know that. That's 2, right? Well, what if we took the first number, kept it the same? Let's change the operation from subtraction to addition. And then let's take the opposite of the number that follows it. So what's the opposite of 5? Negative 5. So what is 7 plus negative 5? Well, it would be, in this case, 2. It's the same number. So this seems to imply the rule that we can change a subtraction sign to an addition sign or an addition sign to a subtraction sign as long as we change the number that follows that sign that we changed to its opposite. Now, in this case, whenever we talk about adding, because this is exactly what I was talking about a while ago, right? This is a positive plus a negative, right? And in this case, it turned out to be positive. Well, what is the absolute value of 7? The absolute value of 7 is 7. What's the absolute value of negative 5? It's 5. Remember? No matter what's inside the absolute value signs, it comes out positive. It's the same number. So in this case, the absolute value of positive 7 has a greater value than the absolute value of positive 5. So the sign is going to match whichever number has the greatest absolute value. So the 7 has the greatest absolute value as positive. So our answer is going to be positive. That's why 7 plus negative 5 equals 2. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and consider the problem that we have here. We have 10 minus negative 3. Always good to rewrite the problem. And notice that my minus sign is right about at the mid-level of the numbers. But whenever I write the negative sign before the 3, I raise it up so that we don't confuse the subtraction with the idea of a negative number. Instead of minus a minus, wouldn't plus a positive be a lot easier? So let's keep the 10, 10, change the subtraction to addition, take the opposite of the number that follows, which is negative 3. The opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. Now I have positive plus positive, so it's going to be positive. 10 plus 3, 13. 2 minus negative 5. So 2 minus negative 5. Let's keep the 2, change the sign to addition. The opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. And all of a sudden, what looks maybe just a little bit complicated, we realize is actually quite simple. 2 plus 5 is 7. Negative 89 minus 82. So I got negative 89 minus a positive 82. So this is a negative minus a positive. Well, in all actuality, I always feel that addition is much easier to work with than subtraction. My personal preference, if I can make it into addition, I'm going to make it into addition. So let's try that here. Negative 89, keep the first. Change the subtraction to addition. And the opposite of positive 82 is negative 82. Again, note the way that I put the negative signs up higher so I don't mix them up with a subtraction sign. Now this is a negative plus a negative, so it's just going to get even more negative. And since they are the same sign, I need to go ahead and add them together. So over here to the side, I can do 89, 82, 9 plus 2 is 11, carry the 1, 16, add one more, 17, negative 171. Negative 83 plus negative 96. They're both negative and we're adding, so it's just going to get more negative. Now we just need to add those together. 83 and 96. 3 plus 6 is 9. 8 plus 9 is 17. Throw in our 179, so our answer is negative 179. 22 minus negative 60. 22 minus negative 60. Remember, I would prefer to add. So let's do 22. Subtraction becomes addition. The opposite of negative 60 is positive 60. And all of a sudden, this becomes not so difficult, and we end up with 82 for our final answer. Here I have negative 853 minus positive 676. Well, it's a subtraction, and I would prefer to add, so I'm going to change that to 853. Change the sign from subtraction to addition. The opposite of positive 676 would be negative 676. So they're both negative, so since they're the same sign, that's important to know. If they were both positive, we would add them. If they were both negative, we would add them. Same sign, add the numbers together. If they were different signs, we'd find the difference between them. So 853, 676, add those together. 9, 12, carry the 1. Silly, I always had to think these 14, 15, right? 8 plus 7. And we end up with 1529, and it should be negative. On the next one here, 297 plus negative 562. Well, I prefer addition, correct? Well, it's already addition, so this says add them together. Now, the rule is 297, positive number. And I'm adding that to a negative number, negative 562. If the signs are different, then we need to subtract them. So take the one with the greater absolute value, 562. It's always going to be what people think is the bigger number. It's the greater value. The numbers are the same size. They're not bigger and smaller there. But many people would think the bigger number. They mean the greater number, right? So let's take the bigger number and subtract from it the smaller number, or the lesser value, 297, be exact, the lesser absolute value. So 12 minus 7 is 5, right? Yep, I had to borrow one. So this is going to become 15 whenever I borrow one from here. 15 minus 9, yeah, borrowed one. Yep, 15 minus 9 is going to be 6. 4 minus 2 is 2. So I end up with 265. Now the question is, should this be positive or should it be negative? Which number has the greater absolute value? Negative 562 has the greater absolute value, or again, the bigger number. The bigger number is negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 269, 296, dyslexia strikes again. Change it to addition. Take the opposite of negative 806 for positive 806. And I could probably do this horizontally this time. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 and 9 is 10. Carry the 1. 8 and 2 is 10 plus 1 is 11. Yeah, I tried getting good at doing that. Doing the up and down math, going horizontal instead of vertical math, horizontal math. And, yep, they're both positive, so our answer is positive. Final question is good. I was hoping it would be another one of these. I'm like, I didn't do enough examples where I was adding a positive and a negative together, so I'm happy that this is one of those. So let's go with negative 474. Leave the first number the same. Let's change the subtraction to addition and then take the opposite of the number that follows, which is negative 125, becomes positive 125. So I've got it to addition. One is a negative. This is a negative plus a positive, right? So the question is, should it be negative or should it be positive? So let's go ahead and work that out. So we know we're going to have to subtract. Let's take the one with the greater absolute value, the bigger number, 474. And let's subtract from it the number that has the lower absolute value. That is to say, the smaller number, 125. And we're going to find the difference between these two numbers. So 4 minus 5, I'm going to need to borrow, turn that into a 6. That's 14. Minus 5 is going to be 9. And 6 minus 2 is 4. And 4 minus 1 is 3. So it is going to be 349. Question is, should it be positive or should it be negative? Well, which one has the greater absolute value? Well, that is to say, which one's the bigger number? So it's the negative 474. So it's going to win out. So since it's negative, our answer is going to be negative as well. And that concludes all of my examples for IXL 8.C.3, add and subtract integers. Good luck with your activity.